11 rack versus AmpliTube 3 dual rectifier, the rematch. So on the last head-to-head dual rectifier versus AmpliTube 3 and the 11 rack, that video was more about just the amp tones, just the bass amp tones, no effects, no post-processing, not a whole mix, none of that stuff, just raw amp sounds. That was the point of that video. But in this video, it's going to be different. In this video, the rhythm guitars are double tracked and the lead guitars are also double tracked. There's also bass and drums. And there's very little post-processing going on. I'm not going through and EQing each track and compressing each track and getting everything to sit exactly right so it sounds perfect. I'm just adjusting levels, panning, that sort of thing. And the only post-processing done is I put Ozone 4 on the master track when I bounced out each track, just to give it a little more width and to contain the low end a little bit. So let's take a real quick look at some of the rigs we're going to use. Of course, all the rigs are going to be the dual rectifier model. For AmpliTube, it'll be the dual rec 1. We have some stomp boxes on this one, a few effects in the rack. Next model is the dual rec 2. Settings are a little bit different here. Nothing in the rack. Next model is again the dual rectifier. Settings are different. This will be the lead track. One lead track is set up just the way you see here, and another lead track has an addition of chorus. And a quick look at the 11 rack rigs will be the dual rec R1. The dual rec R3, again settings are different on all these parameters, and the dual rec R7, again settings are different in all these parameters. This rig is going to be used for the lead tone. In one track the settings are just as they appear, and in another track chorus is turned on. Now for the bass track of AmpliTube, I'm using the GK bass amp, a little bit of compression on there. It's a really great bass amp. If you have AmpliTube 3 and you don't have this rig, right now it's only 20 credits for the amp, 5 credits for the cab. It's a great deal. It sounds amazing. Has great parameters on it. Limiter level, contour, high boost. The mids are split up to highs and lows. Really great amp. Sounds amazing. The bass rig for the 11 rack will be using the Blue Line bass, and this rig also sounds amazing. This rig was added by the 11 rack expansion packs. If you have an 11 rack and don't have the expansion pack, you won't have this amp. So you got to pick up the expansion pack and you'll get this awesome bass amp. Again, this one sounds amazing as well. We also have a little bit of compression on this rig. So you'll hear a semi-mixed track of AmpliTube 3 using the dual rectifier and the bass amp I showed, and then you'll hear a track of the dual rectifier from the 11 rack with the bass amp I also showed, and the same drum track for each sample. Again, this is not a completed mixed track. It's still rather raw, which is the point of the head-to-head videos. You really want to hear how these amp simulators sound on their own without all the post-processing and EQing everything to make it sound perfect. So now that you know what's going on, you know the rigs we're going to be using, so let's start the head-to-head.